We might mention that due to coronavirus, much of the synagogue service is taking place outside in this area, which during the festival of Sukkot that I mentioned a moment ago, the roof is opened and it becomes an open roof to see the stars, where we dwell in tabernacles. I mentioned it a while ago and I'll mention it now again. During the festival of Sukkot, we take 4 species and each of them represents something very significant. We take a palm leaf. Palm leaf is straight like the backbone. We take a willow, which is bent, but if you look at the leaves of the willow, they can be our eyes. That's one of the ways. We take a myrtle, and there's a huge difference, and you'll have to excuse my ignorance, but I can't remember the myrtle. I believe I'm right that it has, does it have smell, David? Yeah. Myrtle has smell. I didn't mention that the willow doesn't have smell, does it? Willow has no smell, no taste. The date palm represents something that has taste. And we have the etrog, which is a citron, and that's shaped like a heart. These 4 species represent parts of the body. They represent 4 different types of people: those who do good deeds, those who are knowledgeable, those who are neither, those who are both, and we hold them together. And this idea of using the symbols of nature is something that's very prominent in many religions, but I think Judaism does more in terms of plants than many of the other traditions that I'm aware of, but I'd love to hear your views. Let's move forward to the garden. We came through the back, but we're going to the front. Okay. So the rabbi described the garden here as what we call Mo'urav Yerushalmi, a Jerusalem mix. The idea was to use as many plants that grow here naturally as possible, and there are a few things that he had in mind. One of them was to try and achieve the 7 species. I'll show you that we don't have all 7, but we've got the natural species that we talk about when we talk in biblical texts about the land. And another was to have fragrance. Why? Because when we pray here on a Saturday when it's not coronavirus, our final service takes us to the end of Shabbat. And at the end of Shabbat, we have a ceremony where we smell, and fragrance is important. And in the tradition of the Sfardim in particular, or Mizrahim, those Jews who came from Arab and North African countries, it is preferable to use not a ground spice as the Ashkenazim, as the Europeans tended to use, but rather a growing herb. So we can pick some rosemary, or pick some mint, or pick one of the, we have Louisa here, we can pick one of the fragrant spices, sort of herbs, and use them in our ceremony. So that was one of the motivations, was to have those fragrances with us. But there was also the idea of what would grow easily and most compatibly within the environment. So although you might notice there are some geraniums which are ubiquitous and not natural, apparently this was the gardener's idea to bring more colour, and the rabbi wasn't necessarily so happy with that. We do have the idea of planting the trees. So David, what do we have here? Can you see what it is? Is it a nut? Yeah, I think it's a fig tree that's not giving things net. No? What is it? Do you know?
Maybe an almond tree?
It could be, because almonds are also used as a symbol in Jewish life, and I'm not sure. This is my terrible ignorance, I'm sorry, but an almond is a symbol. You might remember that Aaron, the prophet, has his staff, places his staff, and it blooms and it gets almond blossoms. And they ask, why almond blossoms? Well, the almond, one of the things is it's shaped like an eye, and it's seen as having a symbol of vision. But the other thing, the hard shell of the almond with the softness inside, of course, we can do many things, and we do many things with our trees. I want to show you some things I do know, not things I don't know. Look. this I do know, and this I think is fascinating. Here we have 6 what they're called Mediterranean cypress or flame cypress. If you look at the shape of them, they look like candles or flames, and they're native to this part of the world. And why are there 6? Because we have here a natural memorial to the 6 million. Not something ugly, but something in nature, something that grows. And I think that was a very, very beautiful idea to have 6 of these. We have here more of the trees that we've talked about, colour, flames, spices, but we haven't yet seen some of the trees that I can identify that represent the species of the land. Sorry, the rabbi actually told me what was here and I forgot. But what does he have here? I'd say yes, I remember the story of this tree. This tree is just a mandarin tree, but it was also to teach the children about fruit. In Jewish life, we don't pick a fruit until its 3rd year. And so to see the children, so that the children of the kindergarten, which is here, learn about eating the fruit that's grown, but waiting to the 3rd year, that was also part of the educational value. Why don't we take a tree till its 3rd year? We're explicitly instructed in the Torah to wait. I think there's a very beautiful thing about giving the tree its time to be a natural tree before human beings get their hands on it. And this is, again, if you read Psalm 104, with which I opened, you'll hear and know that the animals have their food provided for naturally by God. God provides the food for the animals, but it says human beings must work for their food. And we're created that we have to tend our gardens. We're told that initially Adam and Eve were placed in the Garden of Eden, and like the animals, everything they wanted was just there. But indeed, they couldn't stay in the Garden of Eden. We had to work the land, we have to earn our food, and the psalm reflects that. Here we have pomegranate. I mentioned pomegranate is one of the species, one of the 7 species of the land of Israel, and they are growing, which is really lovely. Over here we have something that's very interesting. It's a lemon tree. Why do we have a lemon tree, not one of this species? Well, I could have gone back with the same story of the mandarin tree. Sorry, there's a fig, but then over there is the lemon. Sorry, that's very good, isn't it? Fig tree that's not yet bearing fruit. But over there you have a lemon tree. Why do we have a lemon tree that's not specifically food that kids would want to eat, as I mentioned with regard to the mandarin or one of the 7 species? Well, it's because the rabbi really wanted to plant etrog. I mentioned the citron tree, but the gardener was absolutely convinced that it wouldn't grow here at all. So he substituted a lemon tree symbolically for the etrog, for the species used on the festival of Sukkot when we hold the 4 species together. So here we have an attempt to have a beautiful garden that will hearken back to tradition, be used for tradition, be used in religious ceremony, and celebrate nature, just as the Psalm 104 celebrates the unity of nature. I might just say one more thing about it. We say Psalm 104 in Jewish tradition for the new month. And if you look at it, it doesn't actually talk, it mentions the moon once, but it doesn't really talk about the moon as such. It doesn't emphasize that. What does it emphasize? It emphasizes the interconnectivity and interrelatedness. Just as the moon wanes and ebbs and wanes and is in a cycle of revival and renewal every month, so is the earth constantly being renewed. But when it comes to human beings, we are placed on this earth to help God with this work, to keep nature, to look after nature, to protect it, and to celebrate it too, celebrating nature. The very, very end of the psalm seems to go off topic. It says, may sins be eradicated from the earth. Let's not sin anymore. But if you think of it in the context of the psalm, it seems to me that the greatest sin is not taking note of what we've just been told, not appreciating creation, not appreciating the marvel that we have water, not appreciating the marvel that every rock, and it's mentioned specifically in the psalm, every rock is for the rock badger, every tree is for a bird to make its nest in, every part of nature has its place, and that's what we celebrate when we sing Psalm 104. So thank you.